Hello and welcome back to my studio. It's Lois here from Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. Let's have a bit of fun today and let's just splash around with some paint and paint some sort of abstract mountain shapes and a beautiful cloudy sky as pictured here. So let's take the pressure off and have lots of fun and just use a limited palette to create this lovely fresh scene. But first, a quick peep at my new book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Tips and Techniques for the Complete Beginner, which is now available to order or pre-order, depending on where in the world you are and which shop you choose. So, on with the demo. Today I'm using Saunders Waterford cold pressed watercolour paper, and it's taped to my board, and my board's at an angle of about 20 to 30 degrees, so gravity will help me with the painting. I don't pre-stretch my paper at the moment, but it cockles a little bit, or buckles, as I paint on it, but then it dries flat. First of all, I'm just drawing in some really simple mountain forms. Don't get bogged down by this, just any kind of like mountainy shapes, just loosely and roughly positioned at the bottom for this little experiment. So I'm just looking for a few undulating shapes penciled across the bottom quarter or the bottom third of the painting, and leaving the rest of the area blank for a nice big sky. We're going to be painting the sky in wet, so I'm using a large mop brush, a size 20 mop brush, but use any large wash brush that you've got. And I hope if you can see that I'm wetting around cloud shapes, leaving the rough cloud shapes dry paper and wetting the rest of the sky, sort of softening some of the edges. But I hope you can see, it's a bit difficult, but my dry paper for the clouds will make it much easier for me to paint around them with my sky colours. For my sky colours, excuse me, I'm going to be using cobalt blue desaturated with a little bit of Cotman indigo, and I'll be adding shadow colours by introducing a bit of Venetian red into that. So wetting the sky like this will give me some soft and hard edges. The paint will flow into the wet areas and resist the dry areas, and I can help the paint to the clouds to be a little bit softer in the edges by then softening back if any of the edges are a little bit too hard. So getting my blue colour into the sky areas, working around the clouds, and then I can introduce some shadow colours with my Venetian red or light red. It's quite a powerful colour, so just pick up a little bit of it, introduce it around where you want some cloud shadows, again using the mop brush. And then I can clean off my brush, squeeze out all the water so it's just damp, and then soften parts of the shadows into the cloud areas and just move the paint around a little bit until I get it looking the way that I want it to. Pushing a bit of the cloud colour into the clouds themselves. You can see where I'm having the light red is wet blending with the blue on the page in places and giving me all kinds of different shades of sort of grey through to greyish violet, which is really giving a nice effect to the sky. Just maybe another pass with a clean damp brush, softening here and there. And I think that's the point where I'm going to leave the sky alone and move on to painting my sort of fairly abstract mountains. I'm going to paint over the edge of my sky, so I need a really rich dry mix of paint. This is indigo and sepia. I'm using a 1.5 inch modeler brush, and this is straight from the tube paint with just a little bit of water, and then the brush has been dabbed onto a paper towel to remove any excess moisture. This is important because if you were to paint into a drying sky like this with wet paint, then you'll find you'll get nasty cauliflower runbacks and blooms. What I want is a little bit of soft diffusion so that some of the edges of the mountains are lost a little bit in the clouds, but I mostly want these really rich, dramatic, so almost silhouetted mountain peaks. So I'm just dragging the paint through my mountain areas, just having a bit of fun playing around with this, dragging the brush over the texture of the paper in places to create some dry brush, dipping into a little bit of water and then dragging that across the rich paint so that I get some paler passages of paint across the mountains. I've now dipped into my Venetian red and I'm putting a bit of that across the mountains, and that helps to link the sky colour to the mountains. There's no wrong or right way of doing this. It's just experimenting just to see what textures you can get, to see what sort of variety and how you can just create the illusion of these mountain peaks sort of soaring up into the clouds. I'm now using my palette knife to sort of draw into this rich paint. I'm scraping the paint away in places and dragging it, moving it around. And this is giving me even more texture and even more variety, and hopefully really give me that sort of look of these sort of raw, rugged mountain peaks. And then back in with the brush to sort of work around some of those marks. And then I'll go back in with the palette knife, and this time use the tip rather than the side of the palette knife, and just scrape in some much finer marks. And then when I'm happy with the amount of texture that I've scraped into the damp paint, I can leave this to dry completely. As you can see, the sky is softening really nicely, and so this, hopefully when we remove the tape, should be quite an effective little experimental painting. So the painting's dry now, and I hope you can see the way the rich paint is sort of wet blended on the page. It's softened and diffused in places. I've got some lovely marks created by the palette knife that sort of scrapes through the paint, but still revealing some of the colour below. Removing the masking tape, we can see the painting with fresh eyes, as if it was framed, and I'm really happy with the way the brush strokes that were taken over the tape have taken the clouds off the page all around the sky, so that it looks like we're just looking at a photograph of a full big sky, rather than it having it look as if we've tried to just cram our clouds into the picture plane itself. So always try and take your sky off over the tape as you paint, and you'll get these lovely effects. Well, I hope you found that useful. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up, and I hope that you'll practice this sort of method and technique, which of course you can use in your more planned paintings. And thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. And if you'd like to support the channel, then please follow the links below. If you're wearing headphones, you can probably hear a low rumble in the background. That's my coffee on the stove top. It's ready, and I'm going to grab my coffee and go back to the studio and continue with some more explorations. So I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.